from a very, very windy Isle of Man. It's blowing an absolute hoolie today, so I'm going to keep this vlog relatively short because I really don't know how clearly you can actually hear me. My equipment isn't really designed for weather just like this, but I thought it's important to share this with you because look behind me. I'm at a location called Niarble, which is one of the most scenic spots on the Isle of Man, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Basically, it's a location where the hills and mountains of the island actually meet the coastline in really dramatic fashion. So you can see that chain of mountains and hills just extending out into the distance there. And it's been illuminated by absolutely beautiful winter light that's kind of coming in and filtering in from this side. Is it winter now? Don't know. I think technically it is the start of winter, but I could be wrong. It feels like winter today. It's blooming cold. But basically the light is filtering in this side and just illuminating it through the breaks in the cloud just above here that you can see there. So it's just an absolutely stunning scene. It really, really is. And then you've got this beautiful, quaint little cottage that just is situated right on the coastline there. And it makes for an absolutely cracking composition looking down the coastline today. Now, I wouldn't usually come out in windy conditions just like this, but they lend themselves fantastically well to getting cloud movement, and that's exactly what I'm going for today. I want to get some cloud movement across the scene here with this beautiful side lighting. So I have got my camera set up here. I'll take you in a little bit closer to the camera and I'll explain the setup and the composition that I have chosen. It's so windy that the dead cat on my microphone constantly blows off, so I've had to kind of do a bit of improvisation. I've had to tie it on with my cable release to keep it on the camera so you can actually understand what I'm saying. So if you see this dangling around while I'm filming myself, that's exactly why it's doing that. Now, the wind presents a massive, massive challenge today. It's what I'm trying to embrace for this composition to try and get movement in the cloud, but it really needs some consideration when setting up. Now the key thing here is you can see that I've got my tripod set up relatively low to the ground to give it extra stability. You can see that the legs are set to a fairly low profile angle as well, which again helps the stability of the tripod. And also you may notice that I've kind of offset the tripod, leaning slightly into the wind, and again that makes it more unlikely that your camera is going to blow over if the centre of gravity is kind of leaning ever so slightly to the direction that the wind is coming from. And in my experience, that's a good way to set up your camera in conditions like this. It gets it really, really stable, and I'm 100% confident that that isn't going anywhere. The other key consideration here is stability in terms of where you position your legs. So you can see behind me, it's a bit of a grassy kind of bank area here, which is not ideal at all. When you set your tripod on grass surfaces, it tends to be a bit spongy, it tends to have a bit of movement. So what I've tried to do here is I've kind of dug my legs in with spikes through the actual grass itself, just to give it that extra stable platform to shoot from. And I'm pretty confident that this is as stable as I'm likely to get it. Now, in terms of composition behind me, it's relatively straightforward. Basically, I'm positioning the little cottage here kind of out on the left of the composition, kind of coinciding with the rule of thirds intersection roughly. I think it's maybe slightly to the left of that, but it's not too far away from that. So I think that's a nice position overall. And then you've kind of got here this little jut of rock that goes out into the sea. That kind of runs along the bottom of my composition there. So you can kind of catch the waves kind of swirling around that. And I think it adds a degree of depth through the shot as well. And then what I really love about this scene is you've got these belts of mountains that just go off right into the distance, and with the kind of intermittent clouds that you've got today, you've got beams of light that are just coming through and illuminating selective bits of the coast. So you may get this headland right in the distance illuminating, and then bits of here illuminating, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. It really, really does. So I think overall it's a really nice and powerful composition, but it's quite challenging to achieve what I'm trying to achieve here. So basically, you've got to see my camera is set up right next to me here. I have got a 10-stop filter on, and usually I would advise don't shoot with 10-stop filters in strong winds like this. It's a recipe for disaster, and you'll probably end up with blurry, soft shots, because that wind is going to create vibrations in your camera setup over that long exposure, which will strip away your sharpness. However, I've run a few test exposures with 10-stop, and considering how stable I've got my tripod, it's actually not too bad, and the images look relatively good. So what the 10-stop is allowing me to do is to capture movement in these beautiful illuminated clouds you can see here as they blow across the scene, kind of this way towards the mountain chain, and it just takes the shot to another level. It just looks absolutely beautiful, I think. But what I'm probably going to do also is I'm going to take a shot without the 10-stop, a standard quick exposure, and if when I get my images back into post-processing I feel that that long exposure is looking a little bit soft, what I can do with that quick exposure is blend in a bit of the sharpness in key areas of the shot. So for example, around the actual cottage here and some of these rocks down here, I can blend in that sharpness just to get the image where I want it. Now, in terms of the actual settings that I've chosen for this shot, I'm shooting at f9, ISO 100, and currently an exposure of about 1 minute overall to give me the effect that I'm going for. And I've also got a circular polarizer on just to punch out any of the blues which are shining through some of these little gaps in the cloud here, and just make the colours pop that little bit in the scene overall. But that's basically it for this shot. Other than that, the key here is just waiting for timing, and what I ideally want, I don't know whether I'm going to get it, but a little pocket of light just really strongly illuminating. Well, it's actually kind of doing it now. Just bear with me a second, I'm just going to put the camera down and see if I can get the shot. I didn't even notice that. So I'm using my Leaf Filters app to calculate my exposure with the 10-stopper, and it works pretty well by and large. I've got another 34 seconds left on the exposure. I think this could be the shot. I'm getting beautiful illumination coming in from this side. Just looks superb. 22 seconds to go. I'm feeling this one. This could be my only opportunity, because these windows of light on this coastline here have been pretty limited, to say the least. 10 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's the shot in the bag. Absolutely superb light in the shot that I just got before. I think that's maybe the best of light, but there's still time. The sun is still above the horizon. It's just getting snuffed out a little bit by clouds. So that could be it for today's shoot, but absolutely magnificent it really has been. The key when you're getting long exposure shots of the clouds is to take plenty of images, because each shot will feel very different to each other, simply due to the arrangement of clouds that happen to be in the sky at that moment in time. So really, you'll find that when you go through your images, you may just get to one or two that just stand out so much more than the others, simply because the clouds just happen to be just right at the moment you took your shot. And quite simply, the more images you take take, you'll increase your odds of finding that perfect composition when the clouds are just right. As predicted, the second burst of light didn't really materialise and the sun has now set. So I'm going to get myself out here because it's absolutely effing freezing. It's ridiculously cold out here. So I'm going to get myself back to shelter and then I'll spend a few more moments just explaining a few quick tips to get long exposure images of cloud movement, just like I did today. As beautiful as it was out there, I'm actually pretty happy to be out of the cold. Whoa, bad hair or what? I love taking long exposure images of clouds, and the main reason is I personally feel it adds kind of like a dreamlike quality to images, and it adds a real kind of smoothness and texture that contrasts beautifully with the jagged kind of forms that you get on seascapes. So I think it lends itself particularly well to that. I think if you've got any aspirations of taking long exposure images of clouds, realistically ND filters are the way to go. That's what I personally use. Really, as a minimum, I think a 6-stop is what you're going to need, but more realistically, I think a 10-stop is the way to go, because more often than not you're shooting in relatively bright light, and the 10-stop is the kind of filter that's going to allow you to get sufficiently long exposures to capture a decent amount of cloud movement. And in terms of weather conditions, I think weather conditions is actually the key thing, really. You got to have a day that's got a relatively strong wind, I find, because it's the strong wind that gives you that cloud movement. If the wind isn't sufficiently strong, then the clouds are only going to move very slowly, and you're going to need to run super long exposures to get any sort of decent cloud movement at all, and that comes with its own challenges, of course. So you need a relatively strong wind. You don't want to go into gale force territory because it's going to be an absolute nightmare, but yeah, something relatively strong is going to give you that good movement. And I use a weather app called Clear Outside. I have covered that on a previous video. I'll just link to the top on that now if you're interested. But specifically what I look for is in my low cloud layers, I look for percentage coverage from about 15 to about 50%, and that gives you the patchy clouds that you saw today with nice breaks of light that come through. And I think it adds a real nice palette of colours and contrast into the sky, which lends itself beautifully to capturing that movement and adding those textures into that long exposure. Also, you want to look for an absence of medium and high level clouds above that, obviously to allow the light to come through. Generally, your medium and your high level clouds don't move as fast as your low level clouds, so they're a little bit more challenging to capture movement in. But it's all a question of exposure time. If you run your exposure time sufficiently long, then you can get movement in pretty much any clouds. And it's just a beautiful way of elevating your landscape shots to another level, I find. It comes with its own challenges, as you've seen today, but if you can overcome those challenges, it's well worth doing, because I absolutely adore the effect that it creates. So that's about it for today's video. I hope you could actually understand most of the footage that I recorded. It was really challenging out there, but I just wanted to share the experience with you, and realistically, this is just the way vlogs go sometimes. You've got to face the full force of nature, and that means that the audio may suffer from time to time. So if you've got any thoughts on today's topic and the image that I managed to capture on the coastline here, pop them down in the comments. And if you have enjoyed the video, please smash that like button, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so to see more videos just like this in the future. I'm going to head home now to thaw myself out because I'm still feeling pretty cold, and I'll see you all next week, or whenever I upload my next video, for more landscape photography. I'll see you all soon.